one of my tasks was to go to Goodwill and get an outfit for our client who was in jail because you want to put him in something not jail attire in front of a jury, right? And so I do that. I get his sizes and everything, and I go to Goodwill over the weekend, and I show up to the courthouse on Monday, and I'm ready. It's my first day as a lawyer, and I hand the stuff to my boss that I didn't even meet before, and I hand it to him. He pulls out the khaki slacks, goes, "Good, good." Then he pulled out the striped shirt that I bought, and he goes, "Really? Stripes? It's a criminal jury trial."
Welcome to the Texas Lawyer Podcast, where we share stories from those who practice law in the great state of Texas. I'm your host, Cheryl McGirr, and today we're sitting down with Josh Murray, a lawyer who practices law in Cedar Park, Texas with his wife, and is one of the first lawyers I came to know when I became an attorney. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I can't complain. It's Friday, so it's a good day.
That's right. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your life before practicing law.
Well, I was a child, grew up in Kerrville outside of San Antonio. And when I was in high school, my mom was actually an English teacher and a debate coach. And, your mom tells you to do something, you kind of just do it. And so I got into debate early on in high school. And then as about 2 years later, we created a mock trial program. And so there were some volunteer local attorneys and judges that helped us and coached us, right? And we ended up going to state tournaments, and we went to the state finals one year. And all I remember thinking was, number one, I just loved doing it, but almost as important, the lawyers that were volunteering and the judges that were volunteering to coach us were just some of the most amazing people I'd ever met. And it kind of inspired me to say, that's kind of who I want to be, right? They were selfless. They gave their time. They were patient, because I'm sure we teenagers were not, the most focused and all that, but they kept doing it. And I think they really had a passion for it. And so that kind of sparked my interest. And so at the end of high school, pretty much knew I wanted to be a lawyer. And so going to college, I went to a small liberal arts school called Howard Payne. It's in Brownwood. If anybody knows, Central Texas, you probably know it. But if besides that, you probably don't. Well, when I was in high school and junior high, I was very involved in my youth group at church. And I would preach and I would lead, youth ministries, things like that. And I really did feel this calling of either going into the ministry or going into law, which I know really are diametrically opposed to a degree, right? But they don't have to be. So I go to Howard Payne, and on orientation day, I stood outside the main building and I said a prayer, and I just said, "God, give me a sign, whichever way you want me to go. I think it's still ministry, whatever I do, but which way do you want me to go?" So I walk in the door, and the line for the ministry major was about 50 people deep. And then over here was an old man with his feet on the table reading the U.S. News and World Report with a sign, "Pre-law political science," and not one person in line. And I went, okay, there we go. And so that's how I chose. And so in college, I was able to compete in something called moot court, which is, for those who don't know what it is, in a trial, you have a judge, a jury, witnesses, so forth. Moot court is the appellate court where you make arguments about the legal basis of decisions of lower courts. Well, there was an undergraduate competition that our school participated in, and we traveled around the state doing tournaments. And my senior year, we had a tournament at Texas Tech School of Law, and my partner and I actually won the tournament. And 2 weeks later, the dean of Texas Tech called me on the phone and offered me a position and a partial scholarship to be on their national moot court team. Well, I was broke as broke can be, so any scholarship I'm in. And so that's how I ended up at Texas Tech. And, you mentioned my wife. Yeah, she practices here with me. And that's where we met. We met in law school. And then so she's a year older than me. She ended up coming to the Williamson County area to be a prosecutor. And so I kind of just on blind faith sort of followed her down here. But luckily, about a month before I got here, a job opened up and I was able to start, right out of school. So there we go. There's the
Oh,
backstory.
so it sounds like, you were 18, 19 years old at the most when you really made that decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm guessing you're a little bit older than that now.
A couple, not much. Yeah.
Just
And
a
I did
little
have
bit.
hair back then. Yeah.
And so, that's a pretty big decision for an 18-year-old to make. I've got an 18-year-old graduating this year, and I'm thinking about her making a lifelong decision, and I don't see that happening. I think you have teenagers as well, right?
Well, I've got a sophomore in college and I've got a senior in high school graduating.
Yeah.
And, the sophomore in college has some multiple ideas about what he might want to do and waiting to figure out what fits the best. My senior in high school absolutely wants to be an engineer. And so
Wow.
he's made his mind up. And the schools we looked at for him were tailored to that degree. And so he's kind of like me in the sense of he's in high school, but he knows what he wants to do for a career.
Yeah.
Not all kids do that, and they don't have to.
Right.
Like my wife, for example, she went to law school partly because she was out of college and didn't know exactly what she wanted to do, but it interested her. And so that's how she ended up in law school, and she turned into one of the best lawyers I know. And so it's kind of just see what doors open and, listen.
Right. Oh, I love that. Listening to
Yeah.
that still small voice sometimes that's wanting to be heard among the noise. So have you ever considered leaving the law?
Yeah,
Since
all the time. um, there have been times where I have contemplated, doing something different, but I kind of look at it like, what could I do? Right. I mean, I'm not a skilled craftsman, right? I don't know how to weld, right? I can do a little bit of tinkering and handyman stuff, but not a career, right? I don't know technology like my kids do, right? So honestly, I'm 24 years in now. And so it's kind of you've kind of passed the point of switching gears. But if I
Mhm,
ever did want to slow down and do something completely different, I'd probably teach. That's
mhm,
would be my guess. I've had a number of associates and staff over the years, and one of my staff that's been here for years, the other day, a couple of months ago, I guess, I was working with the young associate, and she goes, "You're really good at teaching." And I went, "Well, I guess I could do that, but that's about it." Um,
yeah,
but my kind of plan, I've been litigating family law cases for 24 years, and over the last probably 10 years, my mediation practice has picked up. And I kind of see that as where I want to end my practice. I mean, I'm not there yet, but 10 years from now, 15 years from now, if that's what I'm doing only, I think that's a good way to, kind of shift gears a little, but still stay involved, just do it a different way. So that's kind of in my mind.
Let's
Not
go
sure.
back in time when
Okay.
you said you first settled, you came right to Williamson County.
Yep.
And so what did that look like your first job out of law school?
So again, I give my wife all kinds of credit. I mean, she's pretty much the best person around.
Yeah, she is pretty amazing.
This firm in Round Rock offered her a job, but she liked being a prosecutor and she respectfully turned it down. But she did mention that her fiance was moving to Williamson County and didn't have a job. And this was like in April, and I was going to graduate like the next month. And I didn't. I was just going to show up and go, "Hey, world, I'm a lawyer. I don't know what I'm doing, but here I am." And so they interviewed me and they said, "Yeah, we like you. Let's give it a shot." So the role was an associate position doing pretty much half family, half criminal. My first day of being a lawyer, a practicing attorney, I sat second chair on a first degree felony jury trial, and I hadn't even met the partner I was sitting with, and it was kind of interesting. And yeah, it's a funny story, and so I'm going to share it. But one of my tasks was to go to Goodwill and get an outfit for our client who was in jail because you want to put him in something not jail attire in front of a jury, right? And so I do that. I get his sizes and everything, and I go to Goodwill over the weekend, and I show up to the courthouse on Monday, and I'm ready. It's my first day as a lawyer, and I hand the stuff to my boss that I didn't even meet before, and I hand it to him. He pulls out the khaki slacks, goes, "Good, good." Then he pulled out the striped shirt that I bought. And he goes, "Really? Stripes? It's a criminal jury trial." And so that was my first moment. And I was like, "Oh, I'm an idiot. Yeah, I didn't think about that." So that's how I started. And so I stayed at that firm for literally 18 months.
Well, what were some of the challenges that you faced going
At the
right into the
beginning,
practice of law? Because I know a lot of people, we've had other guests on who they start, like your wife, in the prosecutor's office, and
mhm,
there's a whole team of people to kind of bring
yep,
you along and show you the ropes. But
yep.
going straight into private practice sometimes can be a challenge.
Yeah, and a lot of it is in law school, they teach us what the law is,
Mhm.
not how to do it. And so when you first start, you really are a fish out of water, right? And yes, surrounding yourself with people that can help and mentor is, I think, a vital part of being a young lawyer. And when I was the president of the Bar Association, we had a program, a mentorship program that some young lawyers took advantage of. Surprisingly, not as many as we hoped, but there's a lot of lawyers out there that don't have that guidance and they need it. But when I started, I worked for this firm and there was one main family lawyer and a couple of criminal lawyers. And I will always give them the credit that they really did help me learn how to practice law. I will say for a young attorney, if you're in a firm, the number one person that you need to befriend and be very friendly with is the legal assistants, because I learned pretty much as much from them about how to be a lawyer as the lawyers. And so don't ever pass up the opportunity for knowledge. And the people that have most of it are the ones that have been there doing it in the trenches. And so I got to learn both from lawyers and from very experienced legal assistants and paralegals that were in the firm. So that really helped get me over the hump of what am I doing? Right.
Well, tell us about what are some of your wins? What were some of your early wins that kind of made you go, yeah, I'm good at this, and this is what I want to keep doing? Absolutely.
Okay. Well, so, and you're a family lawyer, so you know this more than most. In family law, a lot of times we don't get the benefit of quote winning, right?
True.
It's more
Very
of
true.
a resolution and it'll lean your way or the other way. But there was a few cases early on in my so like I said, I first started working for a firm that did family and criminal, right? And when I went out on my own, I did family and criminal to begin with, and that's mainly just I had to make a living, right? And but over time, the criminal fell out on purpose, and I took more and more family because I'm better at that. I feel like I know it better. I think I have a better demeanor for it than I do criminal law. But in the early days, I did criminal law. So my very first jury trial ever, my boss was real busy. So my prep for my first jury trial with my, mentor was a 2 hour meeting at Double Dave's on Sunday before I picked a jury on Monday. And it was a DWI case. And the irony of it was the prosecutor, it was his first jury trial. So looking back, I can only imagine the laughs that the judge had at the two of us, our first trials ever against each other, right? Well, we go through the trial, and like I said, it was a DWI, and the jury found my client not guilty, right? And I think it was a weak case to begin with, but we won, right? So there was a win. Well, then my guy turned to me afterwards and he goes, "Hey, thank you so much for everything, man. I can't thank you enough." He goes, "Listen, I hate to ask, but can I borrow $20?" And I go, uh, "For what?" He goes, "I don't have any gas." I go, "How are you planning on getting home?" He goes, "I thought I was going to jail." Thanks for the confidence. Here's $20.
Yeah.
And so that was a good moment where, the first solo trial, I didn't make a complete idiot of myself, right?
Right.
Um, and then over the years, I have obviously done more and more family law. Now that's all I do. It's been that way for probably 15 years. And I guess this is how I will say winning in family law. Periodically, I will get an email or a letter or a card from an old client, and they will describe how I handled the case and the result that came of it and how that impacted their family long term. Right. And I think the one that is probably the most meaningful to me was this picture that this mom sent me of her, a graduate, tassels and cap and gown and all that, and then the dad standing next to him. Well, they're divorced. They've been divorced for years. Mm-hmm. But when I handled their case, like I do every case, I'm always thinking about the kids. And obviously, I have a duty to my client to get them the best possible outcome and fight as much as I can. But I'm always doing it with the mindset of how is what we're doing going to affect the kids.
Absolutely.
And this mom sent me this letter with this picture of graduation, and she basically said, the reason we're standing next to each other was because you encouraged us to do things and handle things in a way that maintained a good, healthy co-parenting relationship, and that benefited our son. That right there, that's winning, right? It's not the money, it's not the accolades, it's not, the titles. It's making a difference in people's lives that will last a long time. Because we come and go, right? The lawyers are here while the case is going on, and then we step back and we do other things and people move on. If we can do something that makes a better impact for them long term, then it's not about winning per se. Mm-hmm. Like if you and I have a case against each other, I'm not competing against you. Do I want to do a good job and get the best result? Of course, we're competitive people. All trial lawyers are. But I want to make a difference to the people as well. So that's kind of my mindset. Yeah.
I think that's why you and I have been friends since we've met, is because we both have that mindset of how is this family going to look a year after neither of us are in their lives?
Right.
And we always do that. And I think that allows us it drives us to talk to our clients really frankly. Like if you and I have had several cases together, and I know that you're having the conversation with your client, just like I'm having the conversation with my client, is like, I know your emotions are high right now and you may want to go to war, but is that really the best thing for you? And sometimes it's hard as an attorney to have that conversation with someone who is really in a place of raw emotion. A divorce is hard. And I tell every client that. I'm like, if you don't have to get divorced, please do not get divorced, because it's really hard. And to be able to have those frank conversations, and I respect you for doing that. One of the reasons I went out on my own really early on is because I kept running into lawyers who were just about getting the client, getting the win in a different way. And I wanted the same thing. I wanted to be able to really talk to my clients. Let's look long-term. Let's not look short-term winning. Let's look long-term winning. And so I think that really is important in family law. So you indicated your practice today. So you have several attorneys working for you now. Is that right?
Yep. Got so there's myself, and then Stephanie Mills, and then Michelle Limkuhl also works with me. And so we all three do the family law side, and we work together, obviously, and bounce ideas off. Michelle and I are doing a jury trial together in a couple of months. And it's nice to have people around that can, bounce ideas off, if nothing else.
100% agree.
I don't care. Even after 24 years, I still have moments where I'm like, I don't know the answer to that. Right. Well, I'm going to research or whatever, but it's also nice to have people to just call or text and go, hey, have you dealt with this before? And that's part of kind of like our relationship, and many of the lawyers that we work with, is that's kind of the mindset we all have, is we're not here to, necessarily compete. It's more of, can we help each other do a good job? And when people call me for advice or, hey, how would you do this? I'm always happy to help. I think we all should do that. Mm-hmm. And so, so we've got a few family lawyers that we're sort of a team on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I have experienced the same thing. I have an associate as well. And I love the different perspectives sometimes having another extra attorneys in your firm, because it's real easy to, when you're on the case and you're the only lawyer, sometimes you get a little tunnel vision and you don't see maybe another aspect. And so even I was discussing with Melinda, my associates, the testimony that came out in a trial we were at down in Hayes County on Monday. And on the way driving back, because we don't go down there a lot, but we do on occasion, driving back to Williamson, I said, I couldn't believe, this witness said this, and this is what I thought about it. And she's like, wow. She goes, I heard him say the same thing, and this is what I thought he meant.
Yeah.
And so, boy, having that different perspective, just another person to bounce ideas. Okay, so how are we going to handle that? The fact that came out, right, and the fact that we still don't know, yeah, there's more than one perspective on exactly what he meant by that. How does that affect our case going forward and things like that? It's really good to be able to bounce ideas off people and have a team. So do you feel like you've got another good 10 years in you doing this?
Well, we got to pay for college. So
I knew you were going to say that, yes.
I mean, if I win the lottery tomorrow, I'll probably just do pro bono work here and there just to stay active, but that would be it. I'd say probably. I mean, I don't care. I'm 50, right? Or I'll be 50 this year. I think 10, maybe 15. If I can do it in 10, that's probably a target, but not totally sure that'll happen yet. Depends on how life goes and kids. And I mean, hell, if grandkids come around, that might change a whole lot of my mentality. But
yeah, I hear that it does. I hear that does change things a lot. And transitioning more towards mediation, tell us a little bit before we have to go about how you got involved in mediation, how that differs from representing a client, and what you like about it.
Yeah. So, all right, the original story was I was in law school. It was my first year. I didn't have two nickels to rub together. I mean, I was poor as poor can be. I lived on student loan money, and that's it. I mean, it was tight, right? Well, all my friends wanted to go to the beach for spring break, and I couldn't afford that. And so, lucky for me, the law school posted this flyer that basically said, anybody who's sticking around for spring break, we will provide the mediation certification course, which is a 40-hour course for free.
Oh, wow.
And I went, there's my out. Hey, guys, I'd love to, but hey, I really want to do this mediation thing. I didn't know a whole lot about it. I mean, I knew definition what it was, but not part of it. So I do the training, and I was interested. So even in law school, I mediated some cases for the Dispute Resolution Center in Lubbock, which those cases were my neighbor's dog barks too much, or, they had a party and I want to sue them. And I'm like, okay, this is real dumb stuff, but okay. So anyway, so I become a lawyer and I start practicing. And early on in your career, let's be honest, nobody's going to hire you to mediate cases because you don't have any experience, right, dealing with the case, right? And so that comes later. But Williamson County, as you know, has a thing called Settlement Week where mediators will volunteer their time to mediate more simple cases that are a little shorter. And so I started doing that. And so I kind of got my name out a little bit. And, for probably, so if I got licensed in 2002, probably the first 15 years or towards the end of the 15 years, I was probably doing one every week, maybe one every 2 weeks. Well, then 2020 comes around. And I had volunteered for Settlement Week like I always do. And I got this mass email with, I think, 180 lawyers on it from the court saying, due to COVID, we're canceling Settlement Week completely. So I'm sitting at my computer and I look at it and I go, this is going to be a problem. We're going to have so much backlog. Clients are not going to get hearing dates. It's going to be a nightmare. So I thought, what the hell? So I clicked reply all. Anybody who was canceled on Settlement Week, I'll mediate your case for half price. I thought I'd get, 10, 15 takers. No, I got 60. So pretty much March, April, May, and June of 2020, I mediated basically 3 to 4 days a week. And by doing so, I met a ton of lawyers that I had never mediated for before. And I guess they liked how I did it and the style or the result or whatever it was. And so from that point, since COVID, I have had more and more mediations coming in because I've met more lawyers and done more work for more lawyers. And so now, sitting here today, I'd say my practice is probably 40% mediation, 60% litigation. My goal is in 5 years to have it sort of flipped, and then in 10 years, have it more like 90-10. I don't think I ever can completely walk out of a courtroom. That's the whole reason I became a lawyer, was to be in a courtroom. But you said it earlier, and you're right. It's not always the best thing for our clients to be in a courtroom. There are some cases that have to go to court, but I believe, especially with the mediation process, almost every case should be able to be resolved outside of court. And the thing I like most about mediation, and you've mediated with me before, and you hear my little opening spiel to clients, and it is number one thing to be is creative. Because the cool thing about family law is, yes, there is a book called the Family Code, and there are certain laws that we have to follow. But within those, there is a lot of wiggle room because we're talking about what's best for kids. Well, kid A and kid B, they don't have the same family, the same schedule, the same life. Why do they have the same schedule as every other kid in Texas? Well, mediation allows us to get creative and carve things and create things that work specifically for this one family. And I find that solving those problems and putting those puzzles together are really, really rewarding. And so that's why I like mediating so much.
Yeah, I have to agree with everything you just said.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about mediation, and I mediate on occasion, nowhere near what you do. I mean, I do once or twice, three times a year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree that there is so much creativity found in the mediation process, and that's something we always want to try to encourage our clients to do. It's less expensive, and we can be creative to craft a result that is
Yeah.
with custom for that family, and judges just don't really have that flexibility
Or time. That's the
right
other thing that we run into all the time is, okay, we're going to have a hearing, but we only have 3 hours.
yeah
Well, that's really hard to get all the information in front of somebody to make a major decision in your life, and you only get to tell them 3 hours worth of stuff.
yeah well,
That's
or if you
tough.
have a 3 hour hearing, you only get to tell them an hour and a half worth of stuff.
Right. You get an hour and a half, I get an hour and a half,
Yeah,
and that's not a lot of time. And so
no,
mediation gives people that opportunity, and it's sort of a psychological thing. They get to be heard. They get to be
yes,
heard by the mediator, by their lawyer. They get to get it off their chest and say what really matters to them. And a lot of times those things are not, under the rules, admissible in court at all,
right,
but they're important to the person and they need to be considered. And mediation allows us to consider those feelings or those desires or those fears that people have that a judge doesn't have the time or even authority to take into consideration.
right. Well, what advice would you give to someone who is thinking about becoming an attorney?
Oh, man. Okay. So, number one, above everything else, understand work life balance, because this is a job. We all have jobs.
Mhm.
My hope is that you find a job and you go into the practice of law because you're passionate about serving people and helping people through problems. It's not just about the money, right? And I interviewed an associate years and years ago, and I have some unique interview questions like, what superhero would you want to be, right? Or stuff like that. I want to get to know their mindset, right? And so I asked this one kid, and I told everybody, I said, just be honest. There's no wrong answers, just be honest. And I asked him, why'd you want to be a lawyer? And he goes, well, you tell me to be honest, right? And I went, yeah. He goes, it's about the money. I went, been nice meeting you. He goes, what? I go, this isn't the firm for you. That's not why we're here. But you said to be honest. Yeah, I really appreciate it. You're just not who we're looking for. And I think if people realize that this is a job to help people, it's not in my opinion, I think I'm in the minority of this. This is not a business to get rich on, right? It shouldn't be. Our profession used to be honorable, and I don't think it is anymore. And I think part of that is just the mindset of it's all about the money. And I'm kind of on a Jerry Maguire kick right now about, less clients, less money, better service. But I'm getting more and more frustrated with that. I don't know if I'm just getting old and, I'm looking at all these young whippersnappers, whatever. I don't know, but it bothers me, right? But the key is if you have that mindset and all you care about is the dollar, you're not going to be good at something. You're either not going to be good at your actual job because you're not focusing on the client, or you're not going to be good at home because you're only focusing on the dollar and the job. If you bury yourself as a lawyer and you don't do anything else outside of that, it will burn you down and you won't make it long term. You have to have a balance. Like in my firm, every staff member of my firm gets one Friday off a month paid every month because I think it's important that you have family time and you can book time to go to your dentist, that you don't have to miss work and whatever. And I think it's that mindset of it's just a job, folks. It's not our life. And it shouldn't be, right? So that's the biggest piece of advice I'll give them. The second piece is it takes years to build a reputation, and it takes 1 second to destroy it. I have seen too many lawyers, especially younger lawyers, that have a mindset of, I want to beat or win against the old guard or this other lawyer or this other whoever. And that mindset leads them to do things that are not ethical, proper, above board, whatever you want to call it. And as soon as a lawyer does that, they go onto my little list of the lawyers that I can't trust. And that is something that is difficult to overcome, right? It is possible, but it takes a long time. And especially if you practice in an area like Cheryl and I do, family law, primarily Williamson County, we're not a real huge group. We all know each other. And we know which of us, if I say to Cheryl, I will deliver this document to your office by Friday, she doesn't need it in writing from me. I don't need it from her. But there are lawyers that we deal with that we need everything in writing because they have not been honest in the past. And so as you become a lawyer and you start that journey, just understand it takes one time. If you always think about doing the right thing and doing the honorable, integrity-minded mentality, you won't have a problem. And you will be respected by all your fellow attorneys, all the judges, because they know when you walk in, you might not have the right facts, right? You might lose, but you're going to be honest with what you have. And they know that. And so those are the two things that I have at this point gotten to say, those are the two most important things. Oh, and if you can start saving for retirement early, do that. Because if you have your own practice, nobody's paying it for you. So do that.
All right, I love that.
Advice.
That's great. 3 great pieces of advice. Thank you so much. Well, I want to thank you, Josh, for being with us today. We're going to adjourn for the day, and thank you for watching the podcast. And folks, if you let us know if you have a comment or if you have a question, put it below, and remember to review and like and subscribe. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care, Cheryl.
All right. Take care, Josh. Have a great day.